This is the third in a series of how to do the final exercise for the AutoCAD Introductory course at the Shipyard Night School in Newport News, Virginia. First one showed you how to do the green lines. The second video showed you how to make the layers and move stuff to the appropriate layer, in this case, the object layer. In this one, I'll show you how to make the text style and the text properties, which are independent of the text style. And while we're at it, let's create the dimension style. We won't use it in this one. I'll use that in the next video. So this one should be short for just doing text style, text properties, and text and dimension style. Okay, first let's work on the text style. We covered that a few weeks ago in introductory class. On the home tab of the drafting and annotation workspace ribbon, we want to dwell on the annotation tab. Drop down that tab, and here is the icon to create, modify, set current text styles. Click that A with the paintbrush icon to launch the text style process. Never change anything named standard. Leave it as it is so you know what needs to be changed from it. I don't teach annotative. I don't believe annotative style, the text dimension and hatch, I don't think people have gotten into the annotative feature yet of AutoCAD. With standard selected, even if you got a dozen more layers, select standard. Don't change standard. With standard selected, click new. Okay, type in the new style name. It's ready to type in. Handout says name it final. So we'll type final. Step 2, click OK, and that opens up the building of this new text style named final that at this instant is identical to standard. Step 2, change the font from whatever standard was, Arial in recent AutoCADs, change it to Times New Roman. Drop down and Times New Roman. Alphabetically, about 95% of the way down the alphabet list of fonts available in AutoCAD, at least on my computer. You can add fonts to your computer and have them available in AutoCAD. Okay, select Times New Roman. Step 3, change the font style or flavor from regular to bold. Watch the sample down here in the lower left changes as you change the font style. Never change the height in a text style. That way it works well with the dimension style. For width factor, change it to 0.85. That'll compress the letters closer together so you can put bigger words in smaller spaces on the paper. Type 0.85. Letters compress about 85% of what they were. Oblique angle should be 8. And this is just an aesthetic, slight leaning to the right. Type 8. And the letters slightly lean to the right. Okay, now that we've created a text style, we need to set it current. Just like creating a layer, you need to set it current before you use it. So click Set Current. Click Yes. Click Close. We've got the text style, drop down, and you see final is the current text style. We haven't touched annotative and never change anything named standard. All right, let's scroll to the text properties of the PDF file. Oh, first let's create the text required for our drawing. Everything blue I'd like you to put in your final exercise. This is kind of optional, but I'll type that blue as well. Okay, so type your first and last name, in my case, Paul Burgener. Today's date, I was thinking our final class would be on August 29th, but I see now it's really 22nd of August. Okay, so we need to change to our text layer, make it current, or later move the text to the text layer. So text layer, the current layer. Let's click on the multi-line text, capital A icon. Click in open space somewhere. And so we can best off read what we're typing. I'm going to invoke the height option before selecting the opposite corner. We'll make it say height of 10. Okay, we'll type 10, enter. Okay, specify the right or the opposite corner for the right margin of this word wrapping text. And type your first name and your last name. Enter. Today's date, I believe the 22nd is a week from today. Tonight we'll do week number 8. So week number 9 will be next week, August 22nd, comma, space 2023, enter. And whatever we're naming the file, I've been naming this drawing 1 because I don't expect to save it. But if I was a student, I'd name it my first name, space, final, and for good measure, add the file extension, DWG, indicating it's an AutoCAD drawing. CAD systems have different extensions. DWG means it's an AutoCAD drawing or a drawing in the AutoCAD file format created by a competitor. Double check spelling's good. Click outside the text window or click on close text editor. By the way, don't use as little as possible of this contextual ribbon. I think it kind of makes it harder for people to modify your drawing years later. And try to change just properties. Click outside the text editor. Okay, now we need to set the justification to middle center. Zoom in so you can read that text a little better. Justification should be middle center. We already set the height to 10. Line space factor should be 0.85. Okay, both the justification and the line space factor should be done within the properties, in my opinion. Select the text. Justification, by default, text, brand new text is upper left justify. That's why you got this square here. That kind of is the baseline or start point of the text. And you work further down, and the left margin is always going to be lined up with top left justification. Just click on top left, drop down, and change it to middle center. Now with the text selected, you'll see it's controlled by its middle vertical and horizontal point. For good measure, if you double click on text, the text editor comes up, and I can change the date. I'll undo this. Say I want to call it AUG 22, 2023. Click OK, and the thing is, the text is still center justified, kind of like a wedding invitation or maybe a poem. Each sentence is centered on a line. No longer is the left margin straight. I'll click outside or click escape to deselect. I'll click the undo icon to put it back to August. I'll select the text. Height is already changed to 10. Line space factor. Let's widen the column. Line space factor. Brand new start from scratch file. M text is a line space factor of 1. Let's change it to 0.85. Now watch the text as I hit enter. They compress slightly. I'll hit escape to deselect to turn off the blue dots. Notice the white space drop. Now, much less than 0.8, you're going to crash the hang letters, J, Y, G, what else? Much less than 0.8, it's going to touch. I think 0.75 it touches. So don't go lower than 0.8 for the line. Click selected here. The line space factor. I'm going to leave a little bit of white by making it 0.85. Be aware you can mask the background, but I don't know that I've taught that yet. But be aware you can white out the space behind the text if your text is placed over cross-hatching or part of your drawing. That meets the requirements of the text properties. Click OK, or I'm sorry, hit escape to deselect. I forgot the blue here, area and perimeter. Actually, that'll come when we copy paste from the text window after launching the list command, which is about the last thing we'll do with this drawing. Doesn't have to be, but so we'll copy paste area and perimeter and type in the blank, 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 underscore, underscore, from, well, what the heck. All right, I'll type it now for good. Well, maybe good. Click. Area, space, underscores, line, enter, perimeter, also known as length. We'll add some blank spaces. Later, I'll blue out those blank spaces and type our area and perimeter in, or you can create new text on top of those lines. Either way, hit enter, select it, double check it's 10, text type 10, good. Line space factor should be 0.85. And what else? Justification. It doesn't look like the handout follow this, but the handout says text should be middle center. So there, we're ready to add more text in the blank spaces, or blue out the blank spaces and paste 5-7 foot, whatever you come up with the area. If you're within 0.5% of mine, that's as close as that's reasonable. It's not worth looking for the error. Sometimes I can't find the error, and so I don't think it's worth spending time if it's less than 0.5% difference from mine. All right, what's next? Text style. We did text property, dimension style. We'll make and set current the new dimension style named final. Okay, click in my AutoCAD. Similar to before, drop down the annotation tab of the home. Annotation panel of the home tab. And the second icon is the icon to start the dimension style creation and modifying and setting currents process. Click on this icon, looks like a bed with a paintbrush pointing to it. As before, never change anything named standard. And annotative is a recent feature in AutoCAD that has not gained popularity, except for maybe in very large architecture firms. I rarely see it in professionally done AutoCAD drawings. So with standard selected, even if you got a dozen other dimension styles, have standard selected, click new. It's already waiting for you to rename it. Handout says name it final. Same as the text style. And click continue. Now pops up the text modifying process. You got all these different tabs of all these different adjustments to make in the text, dimension style. Just to be in an introductory class, I'm only going to have you change 4 or 5 things from standard. Okay, first change is turn off all the center marks. That is on the symbols and arrows tab. Not sure why it's not on lines, but they put it on symbols and arrows tab. Click on that. Change the center marks to none. That way there's no tiny little plus sign in the middle of your circles. You don't want that because I'll show you another way to put the tiny little plus sign or cross in the middle of circles. And we don't want both. The automatically made center marks with the dimension style, as well as the plus sign made by the center mark command, just to keep things simple. Where are we? Okay, use text style final that we just created a couple minutes ago. That's on the text tab. What text style do we want to use? Well, a brand new text dimension style says standard style. We'll change it to final that we just created. Remember the difference, big difference is standard is Arial font and final text style is Times New Roman, right? Times New Roman, I think. Click final. Okay, next step of building this dimension style is to change the overall scale of to 35. Okay, that's on the fit tab. Use overall scale of, rather long name for a variable, but blew that out and type 35 to make all the arrowheads, all the gaps, all the whiskers, the text. What else? Maybe everything you could measure with a micrometer on the sheet of paper will be magnified 35 times. 3, 5. Okay. By the way, the text height is 0.18. Every textbook suggests text be 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 on the paper. I say keep it simple, leave it 0.18, but again, try to get your text to appear 1/8 of an inch, maybe a hair more on your drawing. Your system administrator might modify your start from scratch ACAD.dwt template to make the text height exactly 1/8 of an inch, but I won't ask you to do that step. Where were we? Use overall scale of 35. Just did that, right? Yep, 35. A couple things before we go to the next tab. Nope, let's go to the next tab. I think what I want to show you is on primary units. Click primary units to go to the zero suppressions. Zero suppress both leading and trailing. There's a separate reason for each. In the US, we suppress the leading zero because that's the way we do it. I believe US, Canada, and maybe the UK. I think the UK is going metric. But those couple countries that still use the imperial system, also known as SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers. Not sure what other names, but we don't have a zero if the dimension is less than 1. So instead of 1.125 for an inch and an eighth, I'm sorry, instead of saying 0.125 for an eighth, we simply say 0.125. You never have a zero sitting independent and alone to the left of a decimal point. The trailing, I suggest, because if you end up with, say, 17.5, it will not say 17.5000, because those extra zeros will be whited out or truncated. I suggest leaving the round off high. Sometimes I crank it up to much higher than 4 zeros. That way, if you've got something that's an incredibly odd dimension, like 85.197456294, it'll show, you'll know at a glance that you drew it poorly, because it's kind of rude for an engineer to have a machinist make something to that precise of a dimension. So by leaving the 4 zeros in the round off, your dimensions will jump out obviously that, hey, fix your drawing. There's no need for 4 decimal places. The exception is, I believe, 3/16. American engineer might design for, or the designer would design for. But that would come out to, I believe, 0.1875. And there's a few others that take 4 digits to show. Over time, you'll recognize that as, oh, that's 3/16. And your precision only needs to be how you measure 3/16 on a yardstick or a tape measure. Don't have to pull out a super expensive micrometer to make it down to the nano inch, or itty bitty fraction of an inch. Anyway, we suppressed leading and trailing. Never change the scale factor from 1. This is the way you lie. If you, for some reason, you scale a machine part by a factor of 0.5, you might be tempted to simply change the scale factor to 0.5, but in that case, you're lying. You're drawing at full scale, but you're not dimensioning it honestly. So leave scale factor 1. I think exceptions are extremely rare for that. That's about it. Click OK. Set the dimension style current, just like setting a layer current and setting a text style current. Click close. All right. Should I continue? Yeah, let me draw the center lines. I should say the sniper scopes, the big plus signs. That is done on the annotate tab, not the annotate panel. Nope, don't see it on the annotate panel. So go to the annotate tab. Click over here on Centermark. Pick the arcs at each end here. Whoop, pick the big arc, the big circle. Now I got a center mark under a center mark here. So I'll try to erase the small one. Actually, I can erase it with a regular selection set window. I'll hit enter to finish the center mark process. Center mark keeps going like copy and line and erase. So several commands keep going and going until you hit enter or space bar to finish them. Let's see, go back to home, click erase, and with a great big regular selection set, I can enclose that small center mark, leaving the big one. Enter. Okay, a couple things wrong with this, with the way we done it. They're on the text layer. They should be on a layer named center or center mark. There is a system variable you can set. I forget what it's called. I'm guessing, well, I won't even guess, but there's a, I don't know, 15 or 20 character system variable that you can make all your center marks appear on the center layer, the center marks layer. I believe it'll create the layer if you don't already have it in your drawing. So let's select all three of these center marks and move them all to the center layer. Okay. Now they may or may not hit escape to deselect. Here they're obeying the line type on the center layer. No, I'm sorry. They come in as center 2 line type. Even though we didn't load center 2 line type, they come in as on the current layer by default and with center 2 line type by default. Select the center line, and there you see it's line type center 2. Even though we didn't load it, it came in as with center 2. Well, you follow the standards of your office or company. I don't want any blank spaces except for these 4 around the cross here in the center. So my advice is change the line type of all your center lines to continuous. I have to admit, decades ago, I was teaching have nothing in your drawing that is not by layer. But when Centermarks came out, I say, well, okay, AutoCAD itself doesn't obey that rule, so I won't beat you on it. Change the line type from center 2 to continuous. If your layer is named center mark, then maybe assign the line type continuous and set the line type to by layer. But since we were using the center layer to get the color red, we don't want the center line type to apply. Let's change the line type of these 3 center marks to continuous. Okay, now no matter how far you zoom in, you don't have those blank spaces in there. I think industry is more lax on that because stockholders are too cheap to pay the designer the extra few seconds to get rid of the blank spaces. Another thing that's a pet peeve with mine, I like to have 15% of the vertical and horizontal lines sticking outside of the biggest circle. Okay, there's a system variable you can type in. I think you add an X to the far right of the typing in. Another way is select one or all the system. See, the whisker is 0.12, just under an eighth of an inch or unit. This thing is so huge. The unit is probably a millimeter. But anyway, you can change all four of these to something much higher, like, I don't know, 5, I guess. Anyway, my suggestion is graphically do it. And again, I don't think stockholders want to pay for this. Oop, I'm sorry, hit escape. Okay, select the cross. Can you do more of them at a time? I doubt it. Let's find out. Resting your cursor, don't click, just set your cursor on the center grip and slide your cursor over into change extension length. And then work your way diagonally out until you got a fraction of the diameter of the arc or circle that you like or your standard. Again, 15%, excuse me, of the diameter is my preference, but you follow your standards in your office or your company. I'm going to make it 5.76-ish there. Hit escape, and nope, it only worked for the one. Okay, not sure if there's a way to do this for all three at the same time. No, add that as something I need to study. Rest your cursor, slide into change extension length, and stretch out to approximately the same. It's a tad less, but nobody's going to measure them. Same thing here. Slide out, set it to 5.7 or 5.6 or so. See, it's costing the stockholders just to do this. There. That's even less. But again, nobody's going to measure them, and you get a little bit of a whisker. Hey, what happened there? Oh, yeah, when I erased the small center mark, I captured that. I selected that arc. Not a problem. We'll go back to the object layer. You circle 2-point method, right? Say I want one end of a diameter at that end point and the other end of the diameter at that end point. Okay, now I gotta trim that off. Modify trim. Click the two pieces you want to blip away. There we go. Okay, how about the arc center line? Let me do that in this video. Don't think it'll be more than 30 minutes long. We'll see. Okay, I'm still in the trim process. Hit escape to get out of the trim process or enter. All right, we need well, I guess I got to redraw that 40 unit line to find that center point of that red center line arc. Yeah, using the midpoint or quadrant, I don't think will be perfect. Maybe I won't take time to. Anyway, let's scroll back to the dimensions. Center of that red center line arc is 40 units to the left of the center of the bottom bearing support or whatever you call it. All right. I'll remember to erase this when I'm done. I'll draw a line from the midpoint of that polar track to the left, double check I'm still on the green polar tracking line, type 40 and hit enter. Now remind me to erase that. Okay, what's the radius of that arc is 125. So on the center layer, I'll draw a drop down circle center radius. Start there and type 125, enter. Now we want it to stick outside the object a bit. How do we do that? Well, how about we could just break it or draw lines and trim to the guidelines, which might be good enough. Again, nobody's going to take time to measure your paper. Let's trim it off there at each of these arcs and then scale it. I think this will work. On second thought, let's draw a trimming circle big enough. Let's go to circle center radius, start in the middle of the cross and come on out so that we have a cutting edge outside of the object to give the whisker about the same length as in your handout. There. We'll copy that circle, enter, from that center to that intersection or center. Now let's trim using these two circles as the cutting edges. It's always a good idea to show the entire circle. AutoCAD sometimes gets confused if it doesn't see the whole circle you're working with. Trim, by default, everything is a cutting edge. Actually, now that I think of it, outside will get it all, won't it? No, because that text is going to be a cutting edge. I was thinking of clicking cutting edge and picking just these two circles, but this is easy enough. I'll click out here, that got most of it. I'll click there to get what ran through the text. Hit enter or space bar or escape to get out. Enter space bar. Sure if escape and then do what you want. Sometimes it undoes what you anyway. Let's go to erase and lose these two guideline circles, and I believe that'll complete all oh, nope. I want the blank spaces to be larger. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 short lines in this arc. Now, for your portfolio to take to a job interview, I'd suggest have a short line perfectly centered on the cross there. But again, nobody will pay you to do that. Let's change the line type scale multiplier factor to say 12. Let's see. Okay, that's more than 4. So let's change it to say 20. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 2, 3, 4. That's close enough. It might be 19 or 21, but we got the 4 blank spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, though the blank spaces are not in the exact same place. So but it's reasonable. Let's hit escape to deselect. Now we'll say that's, whoa, how did this get longer there? That whisker is longer than the handout, isn't it? How did that happen? All right, rather than redrawing the circle, I'll just use a break command. It's a little capacitor looking icon. Let me zoom in. I don't know that this is one. Okay, there we go. Little capacitor looking icon. Click that. I'll zoom back out. And I want to disintegrate this about right there. And disintegrate it off the end. Okay, that alone might have been why the difference in the locations. Let me break off a hair more. Break. Click where I want the X to fall on it. Move off the end to disintegrate. That's shave a little bit off of that. Getting really picky now. Okay, close enough. Again, those short dash lines are not centered there. Like I would suggest your portfolio have for showing the hiring authority. Anyway, save your file to your name space final.dwg. And all that's, I was about to say all that's left is the dimensioning, but we still need to find the area and perimeter length of this green section here in the middle of the machine part. I'll stop the recording and we'll dimension and do the list or weld this into a closed polyline or boundary hatchet to find the area and perimeter of this. And copy paste that here. That's all for, what is this? Third video. I'll end the meeting.